So good.
I say, let me know, because sometimes it doesn't show me as
Oh,
quick
we're
as it
live?
shows y'all.
Oh yeah, we're live.
All right, we are live.
All right, well, thanks. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in again. This is the Real Pride Network and your Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and we're happy to present a discussion on the changes to the NAR Code of Ethics. So I'm Rocky Flowers with Team DB Real Estate at Coldmaker Bain out of Seattle, and I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I would like to take this time to introduce the rest of the committee. Don?
All right, I'll take it away. So I'm John Hull. I'm one of the co-chairs for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I'm looking at messages. Sorry, guys. I am with eXp Realty in Raleigh, North Carolina. And take it away, Urban.
Hi, I'm Irvin. I use they, her pronouns. I work for Sash Realty out of the Puget Sound area in Washington as well. Yeah. Marina, over to you.
I guess that leaves me. I'm Marina Llewellyn with eXp Realty here in Northern Colorado. Basically, I'm Longmont North. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And anything else you want to call me, I'm good. I prefer to be more like Rocky and flowery.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for being here today. So I just want to give a little background first about like why NAR decided to make the changes. And it was because there was a huge outcry from a lot of the local realtor organizations around the country that were during the social unrest that we had due to George Floyd's death and many, many other murders over the last, actually for decades. There was a lot of hate speech that was being put on Facebook, social media, online, and a lot of hate speech was made by realtors. And so these organizations around the country all decided that, hey, the National Realtor Association needs to do something to combat this hate speech. And so this was the first step they took was to make this change to the code of ethics for realtors. And a lot of this, I think for a lot of us we think these were very common sense and just like how you would want to treat people type of situations. But believe it or not, a lot of some of these policies, some of these changes caused, and still there's people that are pissed off about them. And I will just start off by reading what this first one is. So this one was a change to the standard of practice, section 10.5. Realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And I think that all sounds pretty like basic to all of us here. But that in itself kind of caused problems because people didn't like all of the groups that were included. But what really I think people were upset with was the changes to the applicability of the Code of Ethics. And I'm just going to read what it used to say. And while realtors are encouraged to follow the principles of Code of Ethics in all of their activities, a realtor shall be subject to disciplinary action under the Code of Ethics only with respect to real estate related activities and transactions involving the realtor. So what the update was, they changed it from only real estate activities to all of your activities. So your personal Facebook page, if you're posting hate speech online, you could be reprimanded by the realtors for that speech. So I'm curious, like, what are any of your thoughts about the changes and how do you feel, do you think they're for the better or do you think they went too far? What are some of your thoughts?
I'll go first, I don't mind. So I don't disagree with the change to including it to all activities, not just real estate related, because we are the faces of our companies, we are the faces of our industry. And just like any other industry, if you are out there and somebody associates you with that business, that is reflecting negatively on that entire business, regardless of what you think. Now, I'm not saying that you can't think what you want, and hate is I don't find it acceptable, but it's your choice. If you choose to hate, you just can't spread it outside of your own inner circle. And when you put it on Facebook or Instagram, or you're vocalizing it, it's no longer a personal thought. It is now a public thought, and you are encouraging negative behavior towards other people.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to this, this over the last, well, many years, but especially the last 10 years, where there's been this really big push for true fair housing across the board. And this really is a part of that, because you can't, as realtors, our personal life and our business, there really aren't a lot of boundaries a lot of the time. And it's not like you clock in and you clock out, you're always working. So how can you represent fair housing when 1 second you're spewing hate speech and then you get an intake call, or you're getting presented an offer? It's not something you just turn on and off. And it's when you're showing hate speech and you're participating in these activities, you're showing your bias, which is something that isn't supposed to be allowed anyway. So I think that this is a good move. And obviously we'll talk about this later, but there are realtors that are leaving the organization, which is a whole nother subject that we'll tackle.
Yeah, and kind of to your point, what you're saying too is it's very true. I have a personal Facebook page, and I also have my business Facebook page. And I would like to think that they're totally separate, and I can be my true self on my Facebook page, my wild, crazy, probably showing too many clothes sometimes self on my personal page. But but and then I'm like, oh, my business page is all just business, but that is not the case. They're both intertwined. There's people from both my professional life and my business life on both pages. And if I were to, and I wouldn't do this, but if I were to put some hate speech or something on my personal page, just thinking, oh, it's my personal page, don't touch, you can't judge me for that. It's still, someone might see that, and just like you're saying, they might see that and think that I have this bias against them. And I think that but people are really struggling with this. They feel like it's their personal page and I should be able to put whatever I want. And so a lot of people are saying, oh, well, my First Amendment right says that I can say whatever I want, and you can't stomp on my freedom of speech. What do you think about that?
Well, for me, I've never been one to think that a lot of companies they kind of start to get into politics, which I'm not trying to make this about politics, but I think personal views is also kind of in that same category where there's some things that don't go hand in hand with business, where you don't want to advertise it. Like, obviously hate speech is not, is not okay no matter where it is. But like some stuff just doesn't need to be on any social media platform or aired out to the public. And it's not okay. I mean, it's good to support but then there's like the caveat, then if you're not going to do any kind of personal views, then or you're not going to put things that you are for. So it's kind of a catch-22 in a way. But I think it's a good move that they've included it, because like everyone was saying, you can't turn it off. It's not like you clock out like a normal job 8 to 5. You're a realtor at 2 a.m. in the morning as well as noon, and people are going to see that, and they're going to associate you with an entire industry, with an entire process where you're helping people of all diverse backgrounds and cultures. And you can't be biased. You can't show bias. I mean, everyone has bias, but you have to control that, and you have to treat everyone the same.
Yeah. And it's in this age of social media, it's not hard to track people down or to find this hate speech, and word gets around fast. There's this whole issue of cancel culture and what that is like. And really what it comes down to is holding people accountable for what you're saying. And Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I don't talk about my professional life a lot on my personal pages, but I mean, my name's Irvin Narvas. It's not hard to find me. Like if you don't even have to Google real estate or realtor after my name and you'll find me. So there are always going to be some overlaps, and I think that there's what the people who are against this, they're assuming that I don't think they're understanding quite what the definition of hate speech is, which I'm sure we'll define too, where it's not necessarily um, political, where it's political policy or anything like that. It's literally like using racial slurs, which I don't think is excusable and whatever side of the aisle you're on. So I think that like some people said, there was a knee-jerk reaction by realtors. I think that the negative feedback has been also a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, now all of a sudden I don't have freedom of speech. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah. And I think the falling back on the freedom of speech is kind of, first of all, the realtor stance is that we're a private organization and you don't have to be a part of this organization. But if you are going to be a part of this organization, you're going to follow this rule and you're going to set an example in your everyday life, and you're not going to do something that's going to make all the other realtors in the association have their reputations tarnished or look bad because of some type of speech that hate speech that you put on your personal page. I think that trying to fall back on the First Amendment right is just, grasping at straws.
I think it's with anything like, with human nature, it's like we kind of are creatures of habit. Like we like things to stay kind of the status quo. And anytime you get a change like this, especially something that kind of shakes up things or whatnot, I think people are already kind of adverse to accepting those changes. Just from a point of, it's like, well, it's always been this way. Why are we changing it now? Which that's never a good excuse. Like this is the way we've always done it. So, let's just keep doing it that way. That's not a good excuse. But I think that's part of some people's objection. It's almost like they're thinking that the realtor association is maybe overstepping, like, oh, well, now they want to be involved in every aspect of my life. But I mean, it's hard to distinguish personal life and public life when you're in this kind of industry.
For any industry, there's only 168 hours a week, and if you spend 40 of them sleeping and 40 of them working, it doesn't leave you very much time left to separate yourself from what you do. I mean, even your family life takes a toll or a backseat to your business, and your business takes a backseat to your personal life when something happens. There is no boundary. So for them to be overstepping, they're not really overstepping, but I do agree they don't like change, and change is scary, but there's no overstepping. It's just more of a, if this is your own business, now you have a governing factor there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are y'all thoughts if like I'm just trying to take this maybe to like a corporate setting, just as a what if, like just an employee at I don't know, let's just say a bank or some corporate thing. Do you think that they should be held to that same standard as realtors?
I think that if their company stands for equality, they should.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what this does for realtors, it strengthens us as an organization of saying we're not going to tolerate this. We're not for this at all. You don't have to be a realtor to be a real estate professional, but if you are, top to bottom in everything that you do for equality, then I don't think we're asking for much. And I think that more companies, maybe this is the first of many where we're going to see larger companies really enact this and be like, you can say what you want, but we we're not separating hate from home and hate from work. Like we need people, environment is such a huge aspect of work, and especially now that people are starting to go back in the office again, I think having that zero tolerance for hate isn't out of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that same thing. I think bigger companies are going to start. It's gonna be like a wave that's going to start spreading, which we need.
Yeah, well, and I think. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say it already has. We were reading those articles where so and so was fired because they said something at a game or posted something inappropriate.
Yeah, and I think that this was a very good step in NARS for NAR because they've taken a proactive approach and they're saying this is not going to be tolerated right now. Versus, I know a lot of companies react when someone gets caught doing something, and it hits the headlines, and they're like, "We have no choice." But I mean, they may be appalled by the behavior, but they also didn't have a policy in place to prevent someone from even feeling that that was okay. And so, I do have to say, it's like great job in NAR that they have, implemented this, right now, and they're being proactive.
Yeah, I think that it's a big deal to actually have it in writing, to have an actual, an appendix that defines hate speech, defines harassment, defines all things that, and there's protocol for if someone does violate this, as opposed to just they did something, all right, this is just gonna be a patch for this one person. Now there's a precedent for it. Now there's actual protocol for it. Whereas I think like Rocky said, it's really just extreme cases and only cases that are being published on social media. I think if they're happening and the greater society doesn't know about it, I don't think anything's being done. But it being in writing as a company policy kind of solidifies the importance of it to the organization.
Yeah.
I feel like change.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, I feel like changes like this, like Irvin said, are very important to be down in writing, so that companies have something to fall back on. If it wasn't in writing and we as realtors were out there spreading hate speech, they can't. If it's not in writing, we're not really in trouble. We can get like you shouldn't do that. But if it's in writing, then now we're responsible for our actions.
I was kind of thinking about both you and John, only because you're in different parts of the country than Irvin and I. And have you, and I haven't, so I don't even know where to look for this stuff, but have you heard of people being disciplined, and maybe before or after this policy came about, but being disciplined for any realtor at least, any type of, or real estate professional, any type of hate speech or posting something online, or what, have you seen any kind of disciplinary action in any of those cases?
So not locally here for that in particular. I've heard of some of the more name brand, like Coldwell Banker, Remax. They're supporting the NAR change, but some of the smaller brokers are like, well, we're not part of this. We're not realtors, so we're not being governed by this. And they are saying things that you're kind of like, this is why I don't want to be associated with you. And I've unfriended a couple, honestly, but anybody who's working with a big company, XP, Remax, Coldwell Banker, we're all part of NAR. And so it's being supported here locally, at least.
Yeah, I haven't really seen any local cases that I've heard of. Our state board of realtors, which is obviously under NAR, they sent out an email a couple of weeks ago, and it was referring to like the riots and stuff, and they were saying basically like realtors that were participating in that, which that goes to personal conduct. I mean, that's they're not quote unquote on the clock, which, like I say, there's really not a clock for our industry. But it did kind of highlight that even though someone might be participating in something that they believe in, that if they're breaking the law, they're still there's a standard that licensing boards and states hold for realtors who are licensed real estate brokers, and that you can be disciplined in your professional career for conduct that might have happened on your personal time, which I thought was a really good step. They were kind of affirming what NAR had already kind of come out with in November, saying just be mindful of what you do in your personal life, because it's going to also reflect on our industry, on realtors as a whole, and could even affect your license status if the licensing boards get a hold of it, kind of thing.
Well, speaking of that, I believe that one of the rule changes was that if there was someone reported something in you and NAR were to investigate it and they found that you had committed a violation of this policy and it was an ethics violation, they would report you now to your local real estate board, which is I think that's something new for this specific case or this specific instance, and so I think that that's another good change in the right direction because without like consequences, so what? You can't be a realtor anymore. You can't join this. You can't be part of this organization. But if you're actually going to be being censured in your actual the area that you work in by your own real estate board, that has some real teeth to it.
Well, I think what we should be thinking about is, as realtors, we provide a service to the public. Even though we're our own business and we can say we don't want to work with somebody, we really don't have that option. We're providing a service. Like if you get hurt and you go to the doctor's office, they don't turn you away because I don't really want to work with you. It's smarter if we did on our side as realtors, if they weren't comfortable working with somebody or didn't want to work with somebody, that we turn them away. But we shouldn't be doing that. If we're really advocating for fair housing, we would be advocating for everybody, regardless of what they stood for. So as realtors, we shouldn't be promoting hate speech or do you see what I'm saying? We wouldn't have that opportunity of like, I don't want to bake a cake for you today.
Yeah.
We want to provide them the best service possible because that's what we do.
Well, that actually kind of goes into like the next kind of change that we were talking about. And it was like the revisions to the definition of public trust. And I'll just read what this policy says. So at present, the definition or this is before, but board of directors approved an extension of the definition of public trust to include all discrimination against the protected classes under Article 10 of the Code of Ethics. And this, I believe, stemmed from that. I don't know if you remember that Newsweek investigation that was done in 2019, or it was released in 2019, last January, where they had found pretty much in every real estate company around that there were discriminatory practices taking place, such as redlining, steering people into neighborhoods that they thought they should be in, not providing services to people based on their perception of their color, their ethnicity, their religion, kind of, saying, hey, asking some people for pre-approval letters before they spoke to them and not asking other people for pre-approval letters. So, it is, you're hurting the public trust. And when you do that, it reflects on every single one of us that are in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
John, did you have some information on like the disciplinary actions that could be taken?
Yeah, I was looking up some of this stuff. Yeah, the thing about the public trust, that's definitely a good expansion of the definition that they came up with. And I don't know about every state, because it's like there's the National Association and there's state level realtor boards that kind of report to the national level. And I know for our state, for North Carolina, I mean, we're kind of in the Bible Belt, South or whatnot, and like in our contracts and stuff, there's always been a little clause in there, and it's like it goes over fair housing, obviously, as federal law and stuff, which now has been expanded, so that's good. But before this, even it's always had that little caveat in there, like as a further obligation, realtors cannot discriminate based on sexual orientation, gender identity, etc. So that's I've always applauded the realtor boards for going that extra step anyway, and trying to promote equality and show that realtors aren't biased, or not supposed to be biased anyway. I'll look up some of the way that they've got it is still kind of on a local level. Like you're supposed to report your if someone in your local area is violating these, you send them up to like your state board of realtors, and then they will start the process from there. And the other thing, like on this little change list about the implementation stuff, they say that these policies aren't retroactive. So if something was on someone's social media before November 13th of 2020, they're not going to be subject to these new guidelines. So, that might give some people time to kind of clean up their social media and make sure that, they shouldn't have that kind of stuff on there anyway.
I think one of the things that does need to happen is, being from Colorado, we have more protected classes here in Colorado than on a federal level. And so sometimes we'll be looking in the national Facebook pages or groups, and we'll see something and I'll be like, they shouldn't say that. That's a protected class, but I have to realize where they're from and be like, oh, it's not protected. This class of people isn't protected there. I don't necessarily agree with that speech, but we have to think differently when we're looking at a national level and where they're coming from, because some people are adhering to their laws there. And I think that's one thing that NAR does need to do, is actually define what their protected classes are, if they're going to stick with the national or if they're going to go with the state version. Does that make sense? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Like, I think it has to be more defined out, just for those people who don't know. Like, some states have more protected classes than other states.
Yeah. And I think that at least for people that are, no matter where you are in the country, whether your state has this, has those protected classes or not, I think that if you're going to be a realtor, what it means is you have to abide by this, whether your state has it. So, and unfortunately, I wish more, you would think it'd be, because we're real estate agents just aren't supposed to be discriminating at all anyway. You would think that would be, all the protected classes would be in every single state, which, they're working on that right now in Congress, which I'm really happy to see, adding LGBT community to the Fair Housing Act. So hopefully that gets pushed through this year very quickly, so that it does become national, no matter whether you're a realtor or not. Right.
Yeah, so far as like disciplinary actions, it doesn't look like it's really changed much. The like if they get a complaint, someone has to complain on the realtor, obviously, and then it goes up to like a grievance committee. They have a hearing, and then they have to like serve a copy of the complaint on each party complained of, and then they have a time to respond, and then it goes through this whole process. So it's more than one person that makes these kind of decisions on ethics violations. So that's always good that you're kind of judged by people that are still in that industry, and they know what you're supposed to be doing, what you're not supposed to be doing, based on what our code of ethics, what we're supposed to be holding ourselves up to. Let's see, what else do they got up here? So they've got like requirements to further report for realtors found in violation of the code of ethics, and there's reason to believe the public trust as expanded has been violated. The associations are required to share the final ethics decision with the state real estate licensing authority only in instances involving real estate related activities and transactions. So I think that's kind of another push that they've gone to, is if you're violating the ethics, the realtor code of ethics, now it's not like it's just going to stay within the realtors. If it's something that can be brought to the licensing board of that state, there's an obligation to do that. So, it's potentially to the point now where it's going to jeopardize people's licenses, which, these things are expensive to get, and training and all that. So, hopefully it'll make people stop and think before they start spewing stuff on social media, and maybe they can reflect on themselves and be like, maybe I shouldn't post things like this.
Right.
Well, I think too, the bottom line is, if you don't want to help, if you're going to discriminate, this is not the industry for you. It's just not. You have to give equal service to everyone. And if you can't do that, then why are you even doing this?
Right.
I think with 2020 and COVID and how many people lost their jobs, I think about how many people have now taken like the real estate courses to become realtors because they think they're their own business and they're their own boss. And how the bright side to this is all these new realtors and real estate agents that are coming into the business. This isn't a change for them. This is going to be the standard. And I think that's a positive of it happening, the change happening when it did, and with all the new realtors that are coming in. So it's going to be mostly, I feel like, older realtors, people who've been in the business longer, who are giving that pushback about this change.
Do y'all think that we'll see a I don't know how the right words necessarily to use, but do you think that we will see this change to the NAR Code of Ethics as kind of a way to, do you think the people that are not basically following the new Code of Ethics, do you think that they might get out either of the industry or definitely out of the Realtor Association because of this?
I feel like if they have pushback, they're just going to step down from being within NAR, not necessarily get out of the industry, especially if they're already established in their community. There's no control over that other than state discrimination at that point.
Right.
And it's somebody reporting it directly to the licensing board.
Yeah. I think that this provides, obviously I think with the public view of everything, with the case study that came out, was because the majority of people in the US still think that every real estate agent is a realtor. And so they see all these studies coming out about real estate agents and they automatically assume it's realtors. And I think that's why they're having to push this out, because they really want to make a difference here. And I think that it's key for us realtors to educate people to, if they are shopping around, ask them if they're a realtor and ask them why they're not a realtor if they aren't. I get it. It's your first year on the job, haven't had a closing yet. Yes, it costs some coins to join. However, if you're established and you are about equality and about fair housing, why aren't you a realtor? Because being a realtor now is very clear in that you stand for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think that now it's giving consumers power to ask that question, and, as opposed to, where that wasn't really on the table anymore. Like now this is like a firm way of asking, are you biased, basically, because this is what NAR stands for, what we stand for. And I think it's a selling point for us too, to, we're investing in an organization that's governing the movement for equality. And I think that's a great thing for us. And so it's like, if those people leave, then let them leave. And I think that it makes our organization stronger, because the people that we want, that we need, that we want to, encourage and support are the people who are fighting for fair housing. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. It definitely could be for the better, because those people that don't agree with equality and aren't, in this mindset of, fair housing for everyone, we're better off without them. That was another question that I popped in my head a minute ago. In your local, I think we're in like 3 or 4 different states, but does your licensing boards, do they have anti-discrimination language in the licensing law? Because I mean that's obviously a state by state thing, but I think that's almost the next step is these states need to actually add this language to their to the licensing law.
Yeah. We do. Washington, we're like one of the bluest states. We're like way ahead of the game when it came to including all different, the LGBT community, that people that are handicapped. We were very, way far ahead in including all those type of things. And actually, Irvin, I think you were talking about this on our last call, but they're implementing that into our actual contracts.
Yeah, all of our contracts. So if you're a seller, you can't discriminate either. You literally are signing, in order to list your house in our multiple system, you have to sign a paragraph in our exclusive listing agreement that says you won't discriminate on pretty much every single, I mean, we're just like Colorado, where our projected classes are at a very, very high level. And so it's forcing that conversation to have with our clients now too. And so even if you're not a realtor, you're going to have to be using these forms in the state of Washington. So this is the direction it's heading, and you're either going to be with it or against it,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And soon, like we were talking about, soon it's going to be national. So just suck it up. Really, like you have to go with it. Like times have changed, and in order to survive, you have to change with them. And this time, there's no more room for hate. So,
And education is the combatant to hate.
Right.
It's always one of those things where, for people that know someone who's a member of the LGBT community, it changes their mindset, because they're like, well, wait a minute, they're not much different than me. So that's part of the discussion, really, is the people, they just, you gotta change with the times. And this is we can't be showing our hatred or biases or anything like that. It's just, you have to find a way to deal with it.
yeah. And if you have them, change them. Like you said, educate yourself.
Right. Instead of fighting this or leaving, why don't we take that time and that energy to educate ourselves, or to reach out to someone, or to, I'm very open on both my social medias, where like, if you don't understand my point of view, if you want to learn something, just ask me. Don't do this with everyone. Not everyone wants to educate people. But there are people and there are resources out there. Google is free, honey. Like, there are organizations that want to help you realize why we're fighting for equality. So if you are against this new change, then I think that I implore you to take the time to educate yourself on why this is important, and why we're moving in this direction on a national level.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't know. Do you guys have anything more to say on this topic? I think we kind of went around and around about a lot of different points on it, and had some really good points and talks about these changes. Does anyone else have anything?
No, I think we hit everything, and I love talking to all of you. So
I know.
Yeah, we could talk about many subjects, but
Right.
yeah, I think we've exhausted this one.
Yeah, no, it's good too. And actually, to be honest, I mean, I haven't read the NAR code of conduct since I got my license. So it was good to revisit this. And
Right.
being in Washington, it's like this is just the way it is. But it was actually good to revisit it and also see that this is going to be implemented nationally. So
Yeah, it was the same when we got gay marriage. We were the first ones to do it, through a popular vote. And then when everyone got it, we were like, welcome.
yeah,
exactly.
So things haven't fallen apart here in Washington. We're still doing great. Economy's great.
Yeah.
So I think everyone just needs to embrace the change for the better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just want to take this time to thank everyone for being here on our panel, our committee, and thank you guys so much. And also thank you to everybody that continues to tune in and maybe watch this live or catch this video later. So that is much appreciated. And I want to also invite anyone to be a part of our diversity and inclusion committee, because the more people we have, the better we are, and the better we can serve this organization. So please, if you're interested and someone in particular here resonates with you, reach out to them, or just, John, is there like an email people can on the website they can kind of reach out to join? But
yeah,
reach out, because we are definitely looking for people to make our committee more diverse this year. So, and if you have any suggestions on topics you'd like to discuss, or anything that we can do as our committee to bring more value to you, please reach out. We are always open to suggestions for that as well.
Yeah, and we'll put the website, it's realpride.network, in the chat, actually in the description. But yeah, we'd love to have you. So thank y'all for tuning in.